Rents have increased slightly in the US in recent years. Rising rents are putting a heavy burden on Americans, including many Koreans residing in the United States. Today, we will have time to talk with agent Kim SUNGJIN of JHT Group from EXP about the reason for the continuous rise in rent. Many people are struggling with the rise in rent. How does rising housing prices affect the rental market?
The current rental market is showing a remarkable increase in rent, which is hard to see as normal. Real estate prices and the rental market are organically linked and have many things in common. When the house price rises, the real estate rent increases, and conversely, when the house price falls, the rent price is also adjusted downward. So, by the time real estate prices adjust some downwards in 2022, will rents have gone down as well? According to the general formula, since house prices have fallen, of course the rent has to go down, but what happened to the rent? It's going up more. It is becoming inconsistent with the principles of the market. Of course, since the rental market is contracted on an annual basis, the rent reflected in the market price is frozen for 1 year. Therefore, in order to confirm the change, the evaluation of the rental market in 2023 should be in 2024 for a more accurate evaluation. Of course, personally, in 2023, it has been slower than 2022, but it is still being shown to be rising.
Are there any specific reasons why rents deviate from market principles? There are many reasons for the rise in rent. For what reasons are rents rising?
The first is the shortage of real estate listings. There are various reasons, but if you look at the rental aspect, it is because landlord prefers to operate as a rental rather than for sale. Now that it is a market where it is possible to move, and even if the rent is raised, it is because it brings satisfactory results in terms of profit realization through rental income rather than selling. In addition, the reason for not selling is that it cannot be ruled out that the seller cannot find a house to buy to realize the difference even after selling the house he owns for any reason. Lack of listings means that the number of houses that can be purchased is relatively small. Sellers also have to sell houses and become buyers to buy houses, but the decrease in listings is perceived as a burden on the sales process. Another reason is that if you sell the house you live in, you have to upgrade or downgrade. Either way, it is that you cannot be free from the effects of interest rates. Sellers who thought that only the mortgage cost would increase compared to the past purchase and there was no real profit would be less threatening to rent their own property, which is easier than risking through the trading process. This is because if the rental is carried out and the rental does not go well, there is a tendency to see that it is not too late to go and sell it at that time. Also, some homes are sometimes rented and listed for sale at the same time. Compare both sides and think that you are proceeding on good terms.
Wouldn't it be possible to interpret the above-mentioned saying that the current rental yield is good, on the contrary, that there are many actual buyers in the future who can pay the same amount of rent? In addition, it is believed that there are many buyers who decide that it is wiser to purchase a more valuable house than to pay the current high rent.
As of 2023, only when actual buyers participate in the real estate transaction process can active transactions take place, and an increase in flow leads to vitality in the real estate market. It is a trend that buyers who need to come out are still staying in the rental market. The main reason is that buyers who can actually buy a house now postpone the purchase for a while and watch the progress due to the burden of increasing mortgage and house prices. After considering the current high interest rate and calculating rent, various taxes, and insurance, you may think that it is more profitable to rent a house and watch the progress rather than buy a house. This phenomenon appears as a fixed phenomenon in the rental market where buyers who can purchase do not purchase a house but maintain it as a tenant, and the rental market rises and then maintains it.
Last time, you said that a substantial buyer recognized the current interest rate and accepted the mortgage interest rate, which had already risen significantly, and participated in the real estate purchase market. Please explain the difference if the tone of your argument has changed.
My opinion that you should buy a house is still the same, and for any reason, if you live in the United States, I think you should have one. Therefore, many buyers accept the current interest rate and continue to purchase houses. I want you to think about why these people buy a house while enduring expensive interest rates. It seems unlikely that anyone who buys a home would be willing to pay the full mortgage interest rate they have now for 30 years. We don't know exactly when the interest rate will go down, but when interest rates go down, most buyers will refinance.
Can you compare the rental and purchase cases in detail?
Let's arbitrarily assume that it will take approximately 2 years for interest rates to go down. When calculating the profit by calculating the mortgage interest rate received in 2023 and the equity to rise over the next 2 years, those who are burdened by the interest rate in 2023 would have chosen to rent until 2025. Otherwise, the buyer judged that the increase in house price was a profit. Buyer would have accepted the mortgage rate and bought a house in 2023.
So what will the results look like after 2 years?
If you rented for 2 years without purchasing a house, you only paid for 2 years of rent and there would be no additional costs. Of course, since the house was not purchased, there is no equity in the price of the house. On the other hand, if you bought a house, you would have paid a higher interest rate than you hoped or wanted, but you could get equity to increase the price of the house for 2 years and you did not pay the rent, so the evaluation of this part will be mixed. Assuming that the value of the house normally rose by 5% each year, the equity in the price of the house would be more profitable than the difference in the interest rate on the mortgage, while the cost of rent would be much greater than the interest rate on the mortgage even if the price of the house did not rise as expected. To put it simply, the interest rate on a mortgage is 7%, but the rent is 100%.
Are there any additional causes of rent increases? Are there any other external factors?
First of all, from the interest rate perspective, the current interest rate rise will stop someday, and the interest rate will stay in the rectangle pattern for a certain period of time and then gradually go down. Normally, when interest rates go down, it's normal for the prices of stocks, bonds, and real estate to go down as well. On the other hand, this time, when interest rates are unusually low, there is also a side that believes that house prices, which have been suppressed, will rebound and rise. Then, in this August Chairman Powell's Jackson Hole speech, he said that rents in the United States are going down and house prices have fallen slightly. This is true, and there may be more places where average home prices across the country have fallen. But what about house prices in large cities, especially Orange County, Los Angeles County, and San Diego County, where many Koreans live in California? It may have undergone some adjustments over the past 3 years, but in the end, rental prices, including house prices, continue to rise. We can interpret the region-specific variation as the part where we feel that there is a real distance from the Fed's announcement. Cities that are highly preferred as residential areas still show a tendency to increase rents, which can be seen as a direct factor in increasing rental costs even though rental companies for residential real estate in the area are steadily raising rents. Regardless of the justification for companies raising rents. If the rental market continues to rise, individual residential owners will join the increase in rents, and this is a part that has been progressing without disagreement in the real estate market so far.
Then, if rents continue to rise, the exit rate in large cities, including California, will eventually occur, which can lead to a slowdown or bubble in the volume of the entire real estate market in the long run. Nevertheless, in the rental market, should the rent increase?
It is necessary to understand the characteristics of population inflow and outflow rates. As a fragmentary example, even in the case of California, many people are moving to other states. These people consider moving because California prices, expensive rents, and housing prices, which have already risen when they rise, are burdensome. In addition, some choose to relocate because they think it is reasonable to leave California and live in another state for a change of job or post-retirement life. On the other hand, many people still want to move into California, but mainly new immigrants from each country, short-term residents, expatriates, and new immigrants from other states are relatively larger than other states. It could be seen as a case. Therefore, the majority of those who are already considering settling down in California come after acknowledging the current rent from the beginning even before they come. It seems that the migration was planned after the price and market research had already been completed. Since the newcomers moved here after acknowledging the current rent and house prices in California, whether they like it or not, the criteria for purchasing or renting a house themselves are accepted to some extent and the transaction proceeds. On the other hand, it is natural for residents who have lived in California for a long time to be reluctant to the increase in rent and house prices. Therefore, it is bound to be more sensitive to the increase in rent. It is obvious that there is a difference in the perspective of looking at real estate because the rent has risen too suddenly after the pandemic. Here, in the case of short-term residents, since they do not have to pay rent continuously in the future, it can be seen that they feel less burdened than Koreans residing in the United States. You pay a lot of money to live there for a year or short-term training, but the rent is paid only for a limited period of living in the US for a year or several years. On the other hand, my argument is that it is difficult for residents to view the current rent as a positive view if they view this cost as a fixed cost that is continuously spent rather than a short-term expense.
Even in the midst of this, there are areas where rents are particularly rising. Why are rents going up in certain areas?
There is also an increasing trend in the case where many companies in the United States provide partial or full rent support at the company level to those who come from other countries or states due to a lack of manpower. There is a view that corporate rental guarantees can be seen as a cause of rent increase. In any case, the tenants supported by the company's rent can be free from the rent they have to pay, which leads to the result of making it possible to move into the rental area they want as much as possible. Another reason can be found in school district. In the case of newlyweds or couples with preschool children living in areas where school districts are not well formed. The relative until the time their children enter school. If you live in an area where rent is low, and your child is about to enter school, you may be looking to buy or rent a house. This part also seems to have some direct or indirect impact on the rise in rent. This is because an unspecified number of people looked at it as a resident who has some demand that occurs every year rather than coming in for rental, but recently, due to the current high interest rate and high house price, the number of buyers who purchase a house has decreased, and there is a tendency to choose a dwelling that is converted to rental. Because there is another reason is that of safety and security in today's rental market. Overall rents have risen a lot, and the gap in rents by region has decreased a lot. As the cause of the rental increase needs to be approached from various perspectives and it is difficult to draw conclusions easily, we will prepare a YouTube video for more detailed information. Thank you.